Calling this hearing to order. For the record, my name is Kenzie Bach. I'm the District 8 City Councilor and the Chair of the Boston City Council's Committee on Boston's COVID-19 Recovery. This hearing is being recorded. It's being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and FiOS Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.covid19@boston.gov and will be made a part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of the hearing, so if you'd like to sign up for public testimony here in the chamber, you can sign up on the sheet in the corner there by the door. If you're looking to testify virtually, please email Shane Pack, that's shane.pac@boston.gov, and Shane will get you the link and add your name to the virtual testimony list. Today's hearing is on Docket 0963, order for a hearing regarding enhancing Boston's COVID recovery via grants provided by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The sponsors are myself, Councilor Gabriela Coletta, and Councilor Brian Worrell. In addition to the co-sponsors, I'm also joined here today by Councilor Aaron Murphy, Council President Ed Flynn, and Councilor Liz Braden. We've got a whole bunch of members of the administration here. I'll just let folks know who's going to be on the panel, and then we'll go to councilors for quick opening statements, and then we'll go to the panel. But we are going to be joined today by Casey Brock-Wilson, Director of Strategic Partnerships for Administration and Finance here in the city, Chris Osgood, Senior Advisor for Infrastructure for the City of Boston, Vineet Gupta, Director of Policy and Planning for the Transportation Department, Allison Brizius, Commissioner for the Environment Department, Santiago Garces, Chief Information Officer for the city, and Richard McGinnis, Deputy Director for Climate Change and Environmental Planning at the BPDA. Really, the notion behind this hearing is that there are some really, tremendous transformational, but unfortunately competitive grant opportunities in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And so whereas yesterday we were talking about the American Rescue Plan and these federal funds that sort of came to the city by formulas, today we're really talking about the ones where we have to put forward a plan in order to compete with other jurisdictions across America. And in some cases, we do that on our own. In some cases, we do that in collaboration with the state or other partners. And I think the council's just very interested in making sure that we are, maximizing our chances to win those competitive grants, applying for them, and also just getting an update for the council about ones where we're in the process, where we've decided not to compete because it's not a good fit, where we're winning them, where we're not winning them, and just kind of giving us a sense. I'll also just say that since my sponsors and I filed this docket, the Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, which has a number more competitive opportunities. And so although it's not specifically called out by this docket, I think we're also interested in kind of how we're building on things that we maybe had in the pipeline related to the BIL in ways that make us competitive for the IRA, and sort of what the upcoming opportunities there are. Because, infrastructure projects are just hugely transformative. And when we talk about, everything the city does, it's like, I always say that city infrastructure is one of the kind of highest value proposition things around, because you build things and you calculate sort of their useful life over 30 years, but everything in the city of Boston is used for at least 100, which isn't always great on the end of the century, but it does just really underscore the huge value that we get out of investing in public goods. We'll be talking about all these things, but I want to first give my co-sponsors a chance to say a few words, and then the other colleagues here. So Councilor Coletta, great. If you want to make a quick opening statement.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank you for your leadership, for pushing this forward. Thank you all so much for being here. It's great to see all of you, and I know you're doing incredible work. I find myself in many conversations with advocates talking about our waterfront and discussing our waterfront and discussing that I expect the city to be competitive when going after a particular line item. So I know we're going to get to that in this presentation. I look forward to learning more and figuring out how we can be helpful to you all as we move forward in this process. So I'll leave that there. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I don't want to talk too long, but I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor Coletta. My other co-sponsor, Councilor Worrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the panelists here. Thank you for all the work you guys do in the city of Boston. Here, just kind of, like Councilor Barker said, just kind of getting an overview of what's going on, representing one of the communities as an environmental justice community, kind of hearing how, we're using the infrastructure plan to make an impact inside of Dorchester, Mattapan, and just kind of just want to hear about all the good stuff. I feel like when we talk about capital investments, everyone's happy about, you know, new buildings, renovations, and tackling climate change. So thank you, and looking forward to the conversation.
Great, thank you, Councilor Royal. Councilor Erin Murphy at large.
Sure, yes. Thank you all for being here. There's so many of you here. It's great to see. And also, I'll be brief. We need to build things, and I want to be an advocate in support to make sure that we are winning and making sure we're acquiring any grants or federal money we can to assist us in continuing to build here in the city of Boston. So thank you for all being here, and I look forward to the conversation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. President Flynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just wanted to let you know, Madam Chair, that I'm going to be leaving this meeting early. I have another event that I have to attend at 3 p.m., but I will be watching the video this evening. Thank you, Councilor Bach, Councilor Coletta, and Councilor Royal for sponsoring this important hearing. Since the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law passed, I have advocated for a portion of that funding for the city to be dedicated to address long-standing pedestrian safety needs with improved traffic calming infrastructure through the use of speed bumps, raised crosswalks, and rapid flash beacons with pedestrian islands on high traffic roads in corridors throughout Boston. With this opportunity for grants and additional funding, Boston has a unique opportunity to also scale up our built environment and physically change our high traffic roads in corridors to help slow down cars and keep our pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers safe. My district is a fast-growing district, especially in South Boston and the waterfront. The City of Boston is planning the South Boston Transportation Action Plan to eliminate serious and fatal traffic crashes in my community. The infrastructure bill grants will give a unique opportunity to actualize these traffic calming measures within this action plan. This significant investment from the federal government will help Boston's recovery and set the stage to address our infrastructure needs, fixing our roads and bridges, improving public transportation, addressing climate change, resiliency, sea level rise. We'd be remiss if we do not focus on recovering as a safe and more accessible city for all, moving forward with traffic calming infrastructure that actually forces cars to slow down on commuter-heavy roads across the city of Boston. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, President Flynn. And Councilor Liz Braden, District 9.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you everyone for being here this afternoon. We had a very interesting conversation yesterday, and here we're going to have another one today, 2 days in a row. So I really am excited about the potential to get funding to do a lot of infrastructure investment. I know that there's already been a submission made in relation to the I-90 project. As a local city councillor for Alston Brighton, I realise that the I-90 project is sort of a £900 gorilla, and that it is a huge, massive infrastructure on a par with, and maybe not as quite as big, I don't know, as the Big Dig. But for me, as a neighbourhood city councillor, I think the one concern I have is that we don't want the I-90 project to suck the air out of any infrastructure improvements in Alston Brighton, because it's a 10-year, the I-90 project will be 10 years long. If we do not invest in robust public mass transit in that area, then we're really in deep trouble, because the I-90 project will really divert a lot of traffic from the Pike through our neighbourhood, and we really will be in difficulties. So I'm also very interested to hear how robust our ability is to apply for these competitive grants and make sure that we're skilled up and staffed up to be very responsive in a timely way to really take advantage of this opportunity that we have before us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Councillor Braden. And, you know, it is our want here in the council to acknowledge long-term members of the council family. Sometimes those are former councillors, but in this case, I just wanted to give a shout out to Kerry Jordan, who is sitting here in his Do-It staff capacity, but is one of the folks who I think holds the crown for long-term belovedness in this council chamber. So just wanted to welcome you back, Kerry. We're sad to have you on the other side, but glad to have you with us. All right, I think I announced the panel a moment ago, but if you can just introduce yourselves when you begin speaking, just for the folks watching at home, and then just a little logistical note, which is just that the way that these microphones work is that it's only on if it's a solid red light, and only 5 of them can be on at once, which is why they flip off. So if yours is flipped off, just wait a moment if you're about to speak until it's on. Both our folks in the back and our folks behind me kind of manage them, but sometimes it takes a second. So that's just my little housekeeping note. With that, all right, I'm going to go first to Chris Osgood, now our Senior Advisor for Infrastructure, has worn many hats in the city. Chris, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Councilor Buck, and thank you so much to you, to Councilor Worrell, Councilor Coletta for sponsoring this, and to Councilor Braden, Councilor Murphy, Council President Flynn, and others for their interest in this subject. Just to sort of reintroduce and put in context the folks who I'm joined by. To my left is Inez Foster. She is the Director of Resource Development for the city. And at the far end is Casey Brock-Wilson, our Director of Strategic Partnerships. And really it's credit to Casey and Inez, all of the work that goes across the administration to coordinate how we pursue federal opportunities like ARPA, which was obviously the subject yesterday as we discussed, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the subject of today's focus. And that work is really a great opportunity for us to move forward some of our highest priorities. And we can't do that without the subject matter experts who are really leading that charge. And that's really the people who are bracketed by Inez, Casey, and myself. That's Vineet Gupta, our Director of Transportation Planning and Policy, Rich McGinnis, our Deputy Director of Climate Change and Environmental Planning, Allison Brizius, our Commissioner of the Environment Department, and Santi Garces, our CIO. And they are the ones who are really making sure that we are taking advantage of this money to drive forward our efforts around mobility, around sustainability, and around digital equity. As Councilor Murphy noted, you do have a large cross-section of us who are here, and in part because it is a very significant opportunity for the city. And we want to make sure that we take the most advantage of what ARPA, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and the Inflation Reduction Act offer. I'm going to do sort of 2 quick things before passing it first off to Vineet and then down the line. First is to put in context the 2 major sort of pieces of federal opportunity in front of us. Again, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act, and talk a little bit more about the former one in detail. So at the highest level, though, it's important to sort of see how ARPA, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and the Inflation Reduction Act compare in terms of scale, in terms of focus, and in terms of role of the city. So ARPA is, and Casey, feel free to please correct me on this, roughly $1.9 trillion in total investment, around $558 million direct to the city, and that $558 million largely the discretion of the city, but investing in pools, and investing in areas that were sort of most impacted by COVID-19 and our need to sort of respond and recover from it. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law is about $550 million of new funding. About half of that money is focused, or a little more than half, is focused specifically on transportation. And most of that, rather than being direct allocation to the city, is actually formula grants to the state, as well as some competitive grant opportunities, which we'll dive more into in our panel. The Inflation Reduction Act has a component of it, which is about $369 billion invested towards climate change. The majority of that is done through business tax incentives. Again, we'll get more into that. What is important that sort of underlying both of these is a set of federal guidance that ensures that the investment here really reflects some of our highest values, that we are investing in places that have been historically underserved through the Justice 40 initiative, and that through this work we're creating these sort of good jobs that all of us want to be able to create as the result of infrastructure investment. To quickly, just again, a little high-level information on the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. Again, in total, it was around $1.2 trillion of total investment. $650 billion of that essentially is funding, is an authorization of funding around some previously established things, principally in transportation. The $550 billion of new authorization is largely in these 2 categories. Transportation, and then a set of other core infrastructure investments. So on the transportation side, again, you see the total value around $284 billion, the largest chunk of which is roads and bridges. There's also investment in here, though, importantly, around public transit. It's actually the largest federal investment in public transit. There's also an investment, to Council President Flynn's point, around road safety, and then a new category called reconnecting our communities that Vineet's going to get a little bit more into. And then in our other core sort of infrastructure category, sort of the balance of that $550 billion, are categories like broadband, coastal resilience, et cetera, which we'll be touching on. Again, most of this is not direct to the city funds, and very much to the points that all of you raised in your opening comments. What is available for the city are essentially largely a set of competitive grants that we are organizing ourselves to go after. We think that roughly 10%, roughly 30 to 40 of the overall grant opportunities are going to be strong fits for the city of Boston, and likely that equates to 10% of the money. The numbers are a little fluid at this point because there are roughly 400 total programs through which that $550 billion is being allocated. In all cases, not in all cases, have the grant opportunities been fully defined or the grant specifically been published. So it's still a little bit in flux how many we think we're going to be the right fit for. But those that we are going after largely fit into the focus areas of the panelists who are here and the three categories you see at the bottom of the slide, around transportation, around climate action, and around broadband. So I will pass it over to Vineet, who will dive into the first of those, which is around transportation.
Thank you, Chris. For the record, I'm Vineet Gupta. I'm the Director of Planning at the Boston Transportation Department. I'm going to give a quick overview of the initiatives and efforts we've made to receive federal funds that are focused in on transportation specifically. But before I do that, I just want to make a case about three important points. The first has to do with the projects that we are pursuing are not projects that are convenient and ready to go, but are projects that the city needs. And so we have to be very careful when we select projects for these grant opportunities to make sure that we are focused on the things that are important. The second piece is that this is a lot of work, and we have to be prepared to write a good grant application. And anticipating this opportunity, we in fact hired a consultant team that would know how to write these grants, and have in fact helped us write the grant applications. The third piece that's really important and has helped us a lot has been getting community support for these applications. And I'd like to take the chance to thank the city council members who've written support letters for many of our grant applications. They go a long way when these grants are reviewed back in Washington, and to the community groups who've given support letters as well. So having given that kind of background, if you want, I can just quickly walk through, if you have the page open in front of you that talks about federal grants transportation, I can walk you through those very quickly. I'm hoping that you'll ask questions. We have, in fact, in the last year and a half, been awarded 2 grants based on successful applications. Both of these have to do with the RAISE program. Essentially, this is a direct-to-city government grant scheme that we applied for. It's extremely competitive. We are one of the few cities in the country that have been given RAISE grants for both 2021 and 2022. The first was a $15 million grant that we got for improving Blue Hill Avenue. And that money will be used as part of a larger funding basket that we have to make improvements on that important arterial in the city. The second RAISE grant that we've got has to do with the Roxbury Resilient Transportation Corridors. That's a $20 million grant that we've been awarded, and it's essentially the focus is on Warren Street, on Malcolm X Boulevard, and on Melnia Cass Boulevard. Those are 2 that we've been awarded, so we have a good batting average so far. There are 2 others that the city has applied for that we'll hear about in the next several months. I'm skipping the Austin one for the time being, but the 2 that the city has applied for is Safe Streets and Roads for All. We've selected 11 intersections throughout the city to get federal monies to improve with a focus on safety. These 11 intersections were selected based on our high crash network. So again, we are focused on areas that we think need the most help, and there'll be city funding that will complement the federal funding that we're receiving. The Reconnecting Communities grant, Council President Flynn was very much part of that discussion. It's to plan, it's a $2 million ask to plan for a park over the turnpike between Washington Street and Shawmut. And the Environment Department was a close partner in that as well. As Councillor Bairden mentioned, the city is working or did work with Mass DOT to apply for a mega grant for the Alston Multimodal Corridor, or Alston Multimodal Project, which is kind of the area where all the spaghetti of ramps in the interchange there will be removed and replaced with a street network, but will also require the grounding of the highway in that area. Huge dollar numbers there, I won't get into those. It's a whole different kind of ball game. The good thing about this is that these are all separate programs for transportation, so the programs are not competing with each other. It's just the competition is just within each program. And so, as the councillor mentioned, she didn't want kind of this big mega project to take up our efforts in other areas, so we don't think that will be the case. There's one other grant that I won't go into details about, has to do with smart streets. The key thing to remember is that many of these grants are annual programs, so we can keep applying year after year after year for new projects. And so for the race grants, for example, we've only done that for 2 out of the 5 years, but the other ones as well will evolve into annual programs. So there's a lot of opportunity as we move forward. Thank you.
And if we want to go to the next slide. Hi, councilors. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Allison Brizius, and I'm the Environment Commissioner for the City of Boston. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our climate action and those themes in our grants. While we're going to focus on some grants right now that are directly about resilience and energy efficiency and the transition to renewable energy, I want to highlight, as Vineet said, we're not taking these items in silo. So many of the grants that Vineet just described to you had resilience and other emissions reductions and air quality measures deeply embedded in those transportation grants. And those are both in the grant descriptions and the requirements as Justice 40, as we've described, and also priorities for us when we look to grant programs to highlight where are we leveraging that combination of elements. So here you have a summary of a few of our large coastal resilience opportunities mainly at the top, where we're taking action to close critical flood pathways. So far, we've applied for multiple programs, largely out of the FEMA programs. This is Pre-Disaster Mitigation and BRIC, the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program. The first, we're happy to say we were identified for further review, which is a high-level all but award in the FEMA language here for a resilience berm to run the length of Moakley Park to handle both the coastal stormwater and the coastal and stormwater mitigation elements of that large park renovation program. That was $32 million. And more recently, through the Biden infrastructure bill, through a great partnership with the council and with our delegation, we're able to secure an additional earmark to extend that line of protection both to the north and to the south with our state partners. I'm going to pass it over to Rich McGinnis to talk about a few other resilience projects, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about energy efficiency.
Thank you, Allison and Councilor Bach and members of the council. I'm Richard McGinnis. I'm Deputy Director for Climate Change and Environmental Planning at the Boston Planning and Development Agency. While my subdivision at the agency is focusing on all the challenges of climate change, including heat, extreme precipitation, and reducing our carbon footprints through green building, I'm focusing more today on our coastal resilience. We collaborate bi-weekly with various departments, including the Environment Department, Boston Water and Sewer. We convene a monthly cross-agency gathering of various city departments focusing on climate resilience, including Public Health Commission, Office of Emergency Management, Parks Department, Environment Department, Boston Water and Sewer, just to collaborate on our readiness, but also coordinating grant applications such as this. And that's what we're focused on, is readiness, making sure that the rights of way for flood resilient action is determined, the target elevations have been set. We're focused, I'd say, more on how these actions can occur on private property. So through the BPDA, through Article 80, and our planning efforts, we're interacting with private property owners. The FEMA pre-disaster mitigation grant along the Full Point Channel is a 2,300 linear foot flood barrier. The Gillette company approached us saying that they believe in the flood risk modeling and a collaborative effort for action, and we're willing to provide a right-of-way floor flood berm along their property, and that sort of commenced the application process to FEMA, so we're going through the review process. It's a $20 million project, $10 million from FEMA, with a $10 million match from the City of Boston. And it will, we've just wrapped up our environmental permitting process, and now going to go in through the engineering and design effort. We have an RFP that'll be going out shortly. We're pleased to announce, Councilor Coletta, that we submitted a hazard mitigation grant through MEMA this week for a flood barrier along the East Boston shoreline, stitching together private property and public property from Carlton Wharf to Lewis Wharf, working with the MBTA, Massport, and private property owners. It's a $25 million project. This is direct COVID relief funds, 4% of the natural disaster cost have been given to FEMA for these types of flood barriers. So the application's in, it'll be presented to FEMA in January. And just for the readiness for this, the neighborhood reports that the Environment Department have led have the rights of way, the target elevations, the concept design. We've been using state funds to move from concept design to a level of design where we can get accurate costs for those projects and the benefit cost analysis, all these things we need to be competitive in our grant applications. So we have a house doctor embedded in our budget to allow us to do that work as needed. And then the Tenian Beach project is a near-term flood path in Dorchester through Conley Street, identified in the Climate Ready Dorchester report. We recently received a $300,000 grant from the Office of Coastal Zone Management to determine a higher level of design through a community engagement process. And that's another thing, is all of our steps is through community-led engagement on the design. And we've hired Scape to help with that process. So the goal there is to come up with a preferred design and then to move to the next level, which would be seeking funds to actually construct it. That's on DCR property, and we are coordinating with various state agencies, including DCR, in this right-of-way. Thank you.
Thank you. And so I think what Rich has described is that process of readiness, where we need to build the more advanced designs and the more technical analysis to be strongly competitive for those grants. We're also looking at that building and leveraging in the energy efficiency sector. We're advancing energy efficiency and clean transportation investments. An example is our improving ventilation and air quality in public schools buildings. This was $15.4 million in ARPA funding. It was given to BPS. They're working through the identification of air quality, ventilation, heating, and cooling improvements for around 5 schools will come out of that program. But also out of that program and that assessment will come readiness to apply in this winter and spring for the Biden infrastructure bill's Renewing America's Schools funding round. So we're trying to be strategic in how we build those programs. We're also planning our application to the energy efficiency EECBG Conservation Block Grant Program. We're expecting around $660,000 in formula funding, but we will need to put forward a comprehensive plan for the use of those funds in Q1 of '23. And then, of course, we've already advanced applications to the EPA for the Clean School Bus Program for an additional 25 school buses. We are on a wait list for those buses as it is a lottery system, but that is not slowing us down in preparing our next rounds of applications for that program so that we're ready to accelerate when we literally hit the lottery for school buses. I'm going to pass it over to Chief Justice.
Is this me? Hi, do you mind make the clicker?
The coordination.
Very good. Hello, I'm Santiago Garces. I am the Chief Information Officer for the City of Boston. Mostly gonna talk about broadband and digital equity. But before I jump into that, I say one thing that I would want DoIT to be working collaboratively with all these groups, with others. Whenever we invest in capital assets and physical assets, it is good to have digital infrastructure that allows us to know those systems so that we can maintain them and keep them up. And hopefully we work collaboratively to make sure that we're doing a good job of keeping up the infrastructure in good condition so it works properly. But with regards to digital equity and broadband, the affordable connectivity program that we've been talking about since the budget process actually is funded through the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. So this provides a $30 discount on connectivity for eligible families. There's been a lot of work between the federal government and at the local side between DoIT and the providers to make sure that the quality of the services that are provided under this program are appropriate, and there's been an increase in the bandwidth that they're providing. So we feel that people that are participating in the affordable connectivity program are getting high quality connection. There's been over 31,000 households that have been subscribed to in Boston for the affordable connectivity program, which translates in over $11 million of benefit to our residents every year. So it's a big impact. Most of the other funding sources around broadband, the guidelines, NTIA and the Department of Commerce has been the agency designated to administer the programs. The two pieces to have at a broader sense is that those programs, the guidelines haven't been fully defined and the money hasn't been allocated yet. Most of the way that the law reads is the funding will go through the states, and the downside for us is that it seems that a lot of the programs have been earmarked in such a way that they tend to lean towards rural parts to bring fiber connectivity in rural areas. However, we are working closely with the designated agency at the state and with partners to try to make sure that as the NTIA writes its rules that we advocate for the fact that bridging the digital divide in urban communities like ours has immense benefits in terms of efficiency. But there's a couple of programs that are coming up. The first one is BEAD, which is this Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. That's $45 billion that have been allocated, but again, mostly towards building infrastructure to connect underserved households. And we've been working primarily on trying to figure out strategies to leverage these funds to connect affordable housing providers. The funding won't be all coming out at once, and we believe that it'll be rolling out over the next 5 years. The second program that we think that is a good match for us will be this Digital Equity Act component of the infrastructure bill that allows us to have planning, preparedness, and we're thinking about like potential opportunities of leveraging that fund to make city services that are particularly aligned with vulnerable populations, of transforming those to make them more accessible, simpler to use, and making sure that people that are vulnerable have access to great government services that they need. So that's it.
Pass the slide thing. Perfect. All right.
No joy. Oh, there we go.
All right, here we go. So as Councilor Bach mentioned, I'm Casey Brock-Wilson, for the record, the Director of Strategic Partnerships. And as Councilor Bach mentioned at the beginning of the hearing, we did want to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act today as well, because of how it's interrelated with the BIL and with the American Rescue Plan. The two figures on the left of the slide that you'll see today, I think illustrate some of the points that Chris was talking about at the beginning of this presentation. As you can see, the greatest share of the IRA funding is really focused on energy supply and shifting from fossil fuels to low carbon energy sources. And that's doing it through a variety of mechanisms, which are illustrated in Figure 2, which is to say that the business tax credits and some of the other incentives around battery production, clean hydrogen, and electrification of vehicles make up the majority of the bill. Because the IRA, and this is kind of getting into the nitty-gritty, was passed as a budget reconciliation bill versus a different process, a lot of these provisions are financial. And so I think the process at the federal level has led us to the bill that we see in front of us today. That isn't to say that there are not opportunities for the city in there. And I think one of the exciting things that we'll talk about is that there is a greater level of access to tax credits that we've never seen before. So traditionally, tax credits that were only available for businesses are now available for nonprofits and local governments. So that's really exciting to see. So as we took a look at the bill and did our initial scan, we really separated the bill into 4 different categories. So amongst the 30 to 35 opportunities for local governments, we split them into 4 categories. One being the city has to lead and develop a competitive proposal. 2, access those tax credits that I mentioned earlier. 3, work collaboratively with the state on the programs that they will lead. And then 4, advertising opportunities to others. That can be residents, businesses, contractors, building owners, who we want to make sure are also taking their shot at the IRA as well. So if we flip to the next slide, we wanted to highlight 4 specific programs that we have our eye on in Q1 or Q2 of 2023. And those programs, as we highlight, as you have in front of you, are 3 that are city-led that we will be developing the proposals for over the next coming months, and 1 that will be led by the state that we will work collaboratively with them on. So 1 is the Urban and Community Forestry Assistance Program. We talked about trees yesterday as a part of the ARPA hearing. I know many of you are excited to see more investment in that category. This is $1.5 billion over the next 10 years, and funds can kind of be used to plan for, create, manage trees and other green spaces. Second is the clean and heavy duty vehicles. We're thinking about the intersection here with the clean school bus program that Allison mentioned earlier. And this program also funds charging infrastructure, which is great to see. Third is the Greenhouse Gas Air Pollution Plan and Implementation Grant, and we're exploring what the right option is there. And then finally, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is available to states. We will be working closely with the state on that to ensure that we're putting our best foot forward. I think the 4th one is traditionally what folks think about when we talk about a climate bank or a green bank. The money for that, those opportunities is in that 4th bucket there. And finally, we want to just end the presentation by stepping back and talking about the city's strategy on discretionary grants. And that's simply because, as you've heard today, so much of the opportunity for the city here comes through these competitive opportunities. And so it is a team effort, as you can see here today, in putting our best foot forward. And really wanted to highlight the 4 different stages and a few key actions that we are focused on within each of those stages. So of course, the first action is just anticipating the funding opportunities in the coming fiscal year, and really want to thank Inez and the IGR team for their work at the federal level in highlighting those for all the departments across the city. Second, as Santi noted in his testimony, we want to participate in rulemaking by agencies during the comment period to ensure that urban cities can be successful through the rule in the final rule as agencies come out with these notice of funding opportunities. And once we do identify an opportunity and move into stage 1, which is our pre-award, we want to understand the technical eligibility criteria and solicit technical assistance. We do that through some of the consulting contracts that Vineet and Rich mentioned, as well as working closely with our federal partners. On the finance side, we want to confirm our local match. So many of these grant opportunities, it fluctuates. They may have 0% local match. They may have up to 40% local match. We want to make sure that the city is planning for that in its capital budget. And then finally, we want to gather support from the federal delegation and local delegation to ensure that we're showing, and community partners to show that we have the full range of support behind us. Then we get, when we are successful, we move into stage 2, which I think is, thankfully we have been very successful to date. We really, it's about just negotiating and signing the grant agreement with the agency, implementing the projects, and completing all the closeout requirements and submit reports. While I breeze quickly through that, I do want to note that that is is a ton of work for many of the partners here at the table, but thankfully I think we have such a track record of managing these federal grants successfully to take us into this new stage of the BIL and IRA. So I think we will close out there and turn it over to you all for any questions, but just want to thank you all for listening to us today and giving us the opportunity to share some of the work that has been happening over the past year and that we look forward to doing together over the next few years as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Casey, and to everybody on the panel. And I do also want to thank, I think the one person we didn't acknowledge was Inez. And I know your name because every time I've tried to track all of these different opportunities, IGR always says, oh, don't worry, Inez has already made a spreadsheet of that. She's on top of it. And so we really appreciate all of your work trying to collate all of this behind the scenes and make sure we don't miss anything. I'm going to go to my colleagues first, and then I'll back clean up. So I'll go first to my colleague, Councilor Gabriela Coletta, for any questions.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all so much for this presentation and for walking us through everything. I especially love the roadmap that was provided on the last page. It's helpful, visual learner, to see exactly what work goes into it. And Inez, thank you so much for your work. One of the unsung heroes of our city. I know that you have a long career in IGR, so thank you for everything that you do. Of course, I'm going to zero in on coastal resiliency. So, Rich, I'm looking right at you. Thank you so much for the $25 million application for flood mitigation at Lewis Wharf and to Carlton Wharf. I'm wondering if you can just walk me through the thought process to prioritize that. I'm extremely grateful, but I've seen, well, not but I have seen that this area in particular from Lewis Wharf, I have my Google Maps up, it's very sophisticated. From Lewis Mall to Carlton Wharf, we've had 5 private developments that have come up on the water already, who have supposed to have given us this resiliency. And they've actually said, well, we're giving you resiliency, so we're only going to give you 13% affordability. Right? That happened before my time, that happened before my predecessor's time. So I'm wondering why we're zeroing in on this area, and was a flood barrier the only option that we could have gotten through this particular grant?
Great question. This is a near-term flood path. So, we look at, where the city will flood first. It's already experiencing flooding up through the Greenway, and it puts at risk public housing, elderly housing, and just housing in general. The projects along that part of the shoreline have elevated either voluntarily or through prodding through the development review process. So there are islands of resilience, but they're also hitting our target elevation. So you start looking at the shoreline and comprehending what is needed. We just had to stitch in a couple of missing pieces here. Massport just did a ribbon cutting or a groundbreaking for Pierce Park Phase 2. We've engaged with them, and they're going to build in some elevation in that park. And then you have Portside, which is elevated at site. Then you have Lewis Street, which is low, and that's an existing flood path. And then Clippership Wharf is elevated. So it was probably an easier solution compared to other parts of the city where it's just, the entire shoreline, miles of shoreline.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that there was public way available, led us to putting this package together. and also that the property owners were willing to engage with us. 99 Sumner, the mark, as well. Yes, it's been entitled, it's built, but it's elevated, so there's some efficiencies of what we've done in the past to provide, requiring projects to elevate their sites so we don't have to revisit and protect them. It's really stitching the gaps in between.
Yeah, and I know that you can understand this, and I've said it, I feel like ad nauseum, but our whole shoreline is really a puzzle piece, and it's like you mentioned too, the private developers, trying to get them to the table and fully understand what the risk is. And in private conversations with some of these proponents who are going through the Article 80 process, I have told them, they're basically telling me that I could either get climate resiliency or affordable housing because it's a lot of money. And they are either going to invest in one or the other. And what I'm saying is the city is going after this money, this federal money right now. They're being competitive. Maybe we could talk to you or develop conversations to try to get a partnership. Is that realistic? Is there going to be more opportunity for going after more money, not just the Lewis Mall? And I don't want to be greedy just in my district in East Boston because we're already going after $25 million, but as we all know, East Boston has a lot to lose and is the most vulnerable to coastal flooding.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, we need to focus on the near-term flood paths, which are in all our neighborhoods, and to be ready for grant applications. So a level of design that the community supports, benefit cost analysis, and just an understanding of what the cost would be so the city can provide a match. So, just on the development sort of contribution, they're required by permit to elevate their site, not just their building. So it's already, it should be built into their business plan. So I think 244 A Street is a project the BPA recently approved along A Street in South Boston, where the development has elevated their entire site, including their buildings, to meet our 40-inch sea level rise target elevation. And that project is within this FEMA pre-disaster mitigation right-of-way. And so they will actually be doing a piece of this project. So again, some efficiencies there. But I feel that, for projects moving forward, they're already required by our permits to elevate, so that should be built into their existing costs. They require Chapter 91 licenses for public access and public benefits. Typically, those licenses range from 65 years to 99 years, and we know somewhere between then it's going to be compromised. So the state permits are going to require that the sites are elevated as well. So it shouldn't be a trade-off of affordable housing and resilience. I think the resilience should be an absolute at this point through the public review process.
Yeah, and I do know that they have to elevate their properties, but what happens and what we're seeing in this particular stretch of land too is that Slip 65, Clippership Wharf have all elevated their parcels, but the water has gone up and over, as we saw with the bombogenesis, went down to the Greenway, and it has also gone underneath through our stormwater infrastructure as well. And then just calling attention to the fact that it can't be a parcel by parcel approach, right? If it's just one parcel that's elevated, the water will go down to everywhere else. So when I'm talking about resiliency, it's more like nature-based approaches, trying to get them to meet the sea and fortify the coastline that way and have more permeable spaces. So that's when they say, I can either pay for that, get you some open space or green space, or it's going to be affordable housing, which is why I was wondering if we could still potentially go after more of these funds. But I appreciate your answer for that, and thank you for clarifying. No further questions, Chair.
Great, thank you, Councilor Coletta. Councilor Worrell?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this useful information. I have one or two questions. My first question is, Boston currently owns or oversees over 10,000 units, many in Dorchester. Increasing efficiency in these buildings will not only improve the quality of life for over 17,000 residents of these buildings, but also decrease operating costs while protecting the environment. Are we allocating or any plans to put funds into improving BHA-owned development operate properties?
Sure, I can start, and I may tag in Allison too as well. Well, one, I think we are really kickstarting that process with the $20 million investment through the American Rescue Plan focused on retrofits for affordable housing. There's $5 million within that specifically focused on BHA, but as you mentioned, based on the scale, we obviously need more funds to do that. So I think there are a couple opportunities in the Inflation Reduction Act to allow us to do that. For individual homeowners, there will be tax credits available, but which doesn't address the problem that you're talking about. But there will be, through the home program, some funds for energy efficiency in large affordable housing that we hope to apply for. That's still in the rulemaking process, so it's unclear whether that opportunity will become available in 2023 or 2024. And then finally, I think we are also looking at the tax credits that the city may be able to access as the owner of those buildings to help facilitate and bring down the cost to us. One of the things that Chris mentioned early on is that the IRA has built into it some really exciting language around apprenticeship and a prevailing wage. And that actually boosts our ability to receive even higher tax credits and rebates. So the way the legislation is structured is that you can basically get a booster on the amount of funds received if you do meet prevailing wage, and you're focused on these kind of federal guidelines that they have laid out. And we think Boston is obviously primed to do that based on the foundation that we've set. So I think a combination of both the ARPA funding and those two opportunities in IRA will help us push that work forward.
I think Casey covered it very well. I just highlight again that homes program that Casey mentioned through the IRA is going to be a state designed administered program. So that's going to require a close partnership with the state to make sure that that program really works for Boston's context and Boston's housing. But we're already working very closely with BHA to understand the needs and the opportunities for those whole building retrofits that we're looking forward to. And getting that information in partnership with the state so it can inform the process. I'd say also the number 3 on the slide, the GHG Emissions Reduction Fund, which we might colloquially call the opportunity to apply for a climate bank. We've been doing a number of years of design work in partnership with the Mayor's Office of Housing and are working with Mass CEC now to put together an application that we hope will also provide another opportunity for resources if we were to receive that.
Thank you for that, and love the work that we're doing in schools, and just kind of goes hand in hand, making sure that we increase the air quality in our schools, increasing the air quality and energy efficiency, and where our students and our residents are also staying is very important. I just going through my district, I see Franklin Field, Boston Housing Development, which I remember, looking the same way when I was a young boy. So if there's any funds that can be allocated in future plans, definitely advocating for that. And then when it comes to severe heat islands, Dorchester, I believe, has some of the highest temperatures in the city of Boston. Have funds been allocated to improve and increase the green spaces to help combat this effect? I know that there has been a park on Norwell Street that we have brought up for remediation. But just kind of getting more green space, even looking to our roofs of our big developments on increasing that green space. Are we looking to using any of these funds to combat the high temperatures in Dorchester?
Do you want to start it on that?
Yeah.
I think Ines also has some.
Oh,
Yeah.
you want to go, Ines? Start, kick us off.
Franklin Field, Inez?
Is the mic on?
Yes, on.
So to answer your question about Franklin Field, October, Allison's department submitted an application to the Energy Department for a geothermal heating project for Franklin Field development that would increase energy efficiency in those apartments. We're waiting to hear maybe 6 months out before we would know about that. And as far as the west of Washington Park, we're looking at some brownfields remediation funding from the state because the Parks Department owns that parcel right now. And the state does offer brownfields remediation that would plug a hole in a budget for a current project now. So we are definitely looking at that. And I do hear you, the concern about heat islands in the city. The great thing is that you do have the department, maven here, who can elaborate on those projects.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Inez. And I'll pass it actually next to Vineet because we built a lot of work to mitigate heat islands into some of the recent RAISE grants and the Reconnecting Communities program.
Yes, and Councillor, as I mentioned, there are several.
Vinny, can you just speak into the mic?
Sorry.
Just because we can usually hear you if you don't, but the people watching on the stream at home can't. So.
Yeah, sorry about that. Councillor, as you mentioned, as I had mentioned earlier, there are several corridors that we have won applications for. We've been awarded the money, and the ones in Roxbury, that project is called the Roxbury Resilient Transportation Corridors, precisely because the design effort will include greening dimensions. So, for example, street trees, bus stops that provide for cooling in the summer, perhaps water fountains along the way. Then there are other dimensions to the resilient piece as well that include stormwater drainage, for example. So at least on our streets, on Blue Hill Avenue, on Warren Street, on Malcolm X Boulevard, and on Melniak Boulevard, we are not only protecting existing trees, but adding new trees as well. So which will make a huge difference, we think.
All right. Thank you for that. No further questions.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Worrell. And we've been joined by Councilor Fernandez-Anderson from District 7. I'll go next to Councilor Braden, and then OBU, Councilor Fernandez-Anderson, and then I'll do mine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few things. I think I'll go back to my first comment in my opening statement about your capacity, the grant writing capacity. I know historically that in past administrations, the Menino administration had an advocacy and strategic investment cabinet that was an effort to integrate and coordinate the pursuing of cross-sector partnerships across departments and really to leverage the best possible outcome for grant applications. And I know, Inez, you're doing incredible work. Given this sheer volume of opportunities, I'm really, and the fact that we're contracting out for support in this sort of very intense grant application cycle, we're thinking about the upcoming budget process. Do we have the capacity, honestly, the capacity to do really good anticipatory preparation for grants? And also there's the whole auditing process that we have to do with federal grants, the whole reporting process. Do we have the capacity to do that without sort of not necessarily dropping the ball, but without stressing you all out?
It's true. We're drinking from a fire hose of federal funding. We have a tremendous amount of talent in the city and also institutional knowledge of community needs and what the city of Boston is able to do at this point. The first thing we do when we see a funding opportunity is, are we actually eligible for it, right? That cuts out a lot of opportunities, right? And then, do we have a project that fits, or do we have a need that it meets, right? Fit is incredibly important as well. So when we put it through that strategic sifting, right, then we come up with, can we write it in-house, or do we need to contract out? And the departments know their individual strength, and to the extent that we all pull together on applications to fill in each other's blanks, we get it done.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Then I'm going to go to the coastal resiliency and area. Thinking about riverine flooding along the Charles River, the one key piece of infrastructure that will be necessary to try and manage that is the Charles River Dam. And I don't know where we're at in terms of evaluating its capacity and what improvements to the dam do we need. And are we coordinating with our neighbours across the river in Cambridge sort of to think about a regional infrastructure, and then obviously the state, to make sure that we're doing everything we can to manage the riverine flooding along the Charles River.
So the Charles River Dam is a long-term flood risk of coastal waters entering the Charles River. The Department of Conservation and Recreation owns and controls those dams, and they've partnered with the Army Corps of Engineers to study its sort of long-term viability and improvements. The dam is flagged in both our downtown North End and Charlestown Climate Ready reports as something that needs attention. We're engaged with the Army Corps at the moment on broader coastal resilient infrastructure, but also focusing on the dams. I'd say for riverine flooding, I think the biggest risk is stormwater retention. High water in the dam in the river, really lends to the need for stormwater containment on land in Allston, Brighton specifically. We've been building that into our various planning initiatives. There is greater stormwater retention for projects 100,000 square feet or greater. They have to hold another 0.25 inches of stormwater. That's part of our smart utilities program. I think we'd like to lower that threshold, but also look at other measures to control stormwater. But I'd say that what's out of our near-term focus is stormwater, but then approaching or working with the state and the federal government on, probably rebuilding that dam to meet our target elevations.
Yeah, it's not, the water's not getting out of the river if there's an onshore storm. It's really the other thing is, I think it's really hard. It's a very fast-moving technical. There's a lot of technical innovation happening all the time, and I'm wondering, are we keeping up with a knowledge of the technical innovations? I know when COVID hit, we invested a lot of money in HVAC systems for our schools, and it was sort of a sudden emergency, let's get this done. But, the reality is that the HVAC systems that we're putting in are not energy efficient, and we didn't have the time to do a more diligent process to make sure we were getting energy efficiency. So, we're going for more efficient schools, but then the whole process has been undermined by the fact that we're installing HVAC systems that are very inefficient in terms of energy. So are we keeping up with energy and technological innovations across the board, just to make sure that what we're proposing is workable and that it will actually stand up to the rigors of the demands of what we're expecting for different departments, like school buses? How do they function in very, very cold weather? And do we have the infrastructure for charging fleets of school buses? And then the other issue that we have in Allston Brighton, is the grid, in terms of the actual energy grid. And I know this is more at a slightly higher level. We're talking at more state level and Department of Utilities, etc. Thinking about the resilience of our energy grid, we are building a lot of buildings and a lot of more charging stations for cars, more electric-only buildings. And yet, this last summer, we had a heat wave for 5-6 days, and we had rolling brownouts across, to the point that 2 of our hospitals were in danger of losing electricity because we didn't have a grid that was sustainable or would stand up to the increased demand, the increased stress on the system when we had a heat wave. So, those are concerns of just from me thinking my narrow focus in my district, and I'm sure there's concerns across the city that are equivalent or equally urgent.
Sure. I don't know if this is the perfect answer, but these sorts of emergencies and catastrophes and pandemics force us to lay the track with the train right behind us. And so we learn in the moment and we plan it as we go. When we see a funding opportunity, one of the technical analyses that we go through is that level of engineering or whatever it requires. And again, you have to remember that this is the city of Boston and we do have a lot of talent here. We just need to match it to the opportunity. When they give us an opportunity to build capacity in a system to meet a need, we do that. If we don't have the existing technology, can we build it into the budget? So it's really a case-by-case basis in terms of the grant, what the grant allows us to do with the funding, and then what we have the existing capacity to do.
Yeah.
That's just
Thank you,
theoretical.
Liz. Yeah. It's a great question, Counselor, and it's something that we think about often in the city. I think there's a number of approaches that we're taking. One is that we are absolutely fortunate to benefit from the experiences of strong learning networks with other cities and with a great and very active community in Boston, in the universities and in the building sector that are problem solving these issues in real time. So we can always reach out and seek technical assistance. For example, with cold climate school buses, we can look to other cities that have already, in very cold or colder climates, that have already taken them on and reach out and learn from them about what some of the strategies and the struggles were, learn from that, hope to do better, and then share that learning back with the network. It's also why in some instances we take on a pilot or a small first rollout, just like you're seeing with the school buses. We're taking on 20 EV school buses this round so that we can work out those elements, test the system, understand where we need to adapt before we go to the next larger expansions of the program. So that's where we have some moments for strategic testing. And then that's also where, as a city, we're working to break down those silos and pull programs together. So the Green New Deal for Schools initiative is a great example. Yes, in COVID, we were grabbing the HVAC system or the air conditioner that needed to get in the window at that moment. But through these programs, we're working to harmonize and make sure that we're updating the technical specifications, that we're pulling in expertise from different departments to work on making sure that the specs and the design elements are in place so that when the next building gets built, it just becomes part of the normal process, and to bring training in when necessary for folks, because you're right, it is a very rapidly evolving field.
Thank you.
Can I offer one quick other example? I'll
Absolutely.
turn over to Vineet
Yeah.
on this. So Vineet touched on the SMART grant, which is the Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation grant. And essentially that grant, that $2 million grant application, is specifically to look at what are the right standards we should be using, particularly from sort of like a modern tech perspective, whether it's around signals or bus shelter design, et cetera, as we invest in places like Blue Hill Ave through the RAISE grant, like the Roxbury corridors through the RAISE grant, like Western Ave, or any other locations across the city, to make sure that from the start we are putting into our contracts sort of the smart, the optimal sort of design from the start.
Yeah, just a couple of details on that. We're exploring opportunities of how bus stops can have real-time transit and climate information for residents. We are thinking about installing microclimate sensors that can give us data on air and water quality, can provide real-time alerts on maintenance issues. We are looking at how bus stops can have free Wi-Fi and how those can work hand in hand with free Wi-Fi in our public libraries. So this $2 million grant opportunity for which we've applied for is focused specifically, as Chris mentioned, on expanding our understanding and our ability to deploy these smart kind of elements to street redesign and construction.
Thank you. And Chris, maybe you could, is the issue about the grid, I know that's a big issue across the city. I know we weren't the only district to have brownouts last summer.
No, you're absolutely correct, Councillor, that increasing resilience of the grid is going to be a critical topic, especially as we move towards electrification and we have more severe storms, more severe heat waves. A lot of this work is going to need to be done naturally in partnership with the state, with the DPU, as you identified, and other agencies. Other things that we can do as a city, in addition to close tracking and monitoring and preparedness ahead of a potential outage is to make sure that we're building the most efficiency into our buildings as possible to control that demand. We can have less load on the grid than if we're having highly efficient buildings. We'll also need to build out through programs like the Solarize program that we've talked about here before, making sure that we have distributed generation, so we have solar panels, we have backup battery storage, so that when there is an outage on the grid, residents, especially critical systems, have access to that ongoing power. And then we need to work at the state level on grid modernization. Because there are, just like many other pieces of our infrastructure, we have aging grid infrastructure in some locations that need to be modernized.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Braden. Councillor Fernandez-Henderson?
Thank you, Councillor Bach. I actually want to reserve my questions. Just here listening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then I will jump into some of mine. Two are just quick comments, just in terms of like things in my district that I hope we'll keep an eye on, because I think that the main people carrying them is not us, but if there are kind of like fringe grant opportunities to make things better. So I think everybody here is aware of the Charles Gate project. That's one where I'm really excited because it's really state highway funding bolstered by federal highway funding. And because they have to rebuild these bridges anyways, they're going to be able to rebuild them in a way that reconnects the fens to the esplanade, that allows us to daylight the Muddy River. There are environmental benefits. There's going to be huge walking and biking connectivity benefits. And I think real green infrastructure ones. And from my perspective, this is sort of a reconnecting communities grant on the cheap, where it's not that it's going to be inexpensive, but the fact that the highway world has to spend so much money on these bridges anyways, it's really exciting. I'm just mindful that, there's the version of that project that does some nice things, and then there's the version of that project that's really transformative. And we have a lot of private partners who are working to raise funds around making sure it's sort of the latter happens. But I just think that, it's state land that's sort of surrounded by city land. And if there are opportunities along the fringes, I'm actually very proud that the city, by giving an initial Community Preservation Act grant for the planning for this area, actually really helped kick off this like new vision that the state really bought into. So I just want to make sure that we keep an eye out for that. The other one, and it's right at the border of mine and Councillor Braden's district, is the Grand Junction Railway. And, sort of the opportunity to use that rail link, which of course used to, be a much more significant rail connection. These days is only used for, as I understand it, sort of moving disabled trains across the river for repair, but has the potential to achieve like a real kind of like traffic relieving connection when you think about connecting the Alston neck of the woods to the Kendall neck of the woods, and maybe then eventually even to North Station. There's just like, there's huge benefits to Boston there, even though the bulk of the infrastructure work would be on the Cambridge side. So those are just two District 8 things that I just want to flag, like, and make sure are on your guys' radar in case there are kind of opportunities where we need to align to make something happen, or we need to just like find little, some of these fringe grant opportunities or planning grants or whatever to help support. So would welcome any comments on those. Then maybe, Casey, if you could talk a little bit about our eligibility for tax credits and how that sort of like works in practice and what sort of things it would work on, just so that I better understand what that looks like.
So there's a variety, and I'm just going to pull up because there's so many different ones. I want to have it in front of me as we speak through it. I think there are a few different tax credits that we have specifically picked out. One is the Clean Electricity Investment Tax Credit. There's one for commercial clean vehicles. There's a tax credit for any alternative refueling properties as well, if the city develops those. Those are the three main ones that traditionally were only available to businesses.
Wait, sorry, I just heard two. There's the alternative refueling, there's
commercial clean vehicles,
yeah,
and clean electricity tax
What
credits.
is clean electricity mean?
So
like,
let me pull that one up right
just curious.
now.
And then also like, how does a tax credit accrue to our benefit? Because obviously we don't pay taxes.
Yes.
So
Yeah, so it's
that's the piece
based
I'm
on.
trying to understand.
Yeah, so it's exactly. So it basically creates a mechanism for non-tax paying entities to receive the financial benefit of the tax credit if we are meeting certain things. So if we're using manufactured product that was facilitated, that was produced in the US, as well as those prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements that we haven't seen the exact mechanism for it roll out yet because it will not be rolled out until 2023. But we are, of course, keeping an eye on it because we will want to access
But
them.
you think it's going to turn into something where we actually get like a cash payment in lieu of? Or do you think, I guess what I'm curious about is, I always think that we should be doing something as the public side without like bringing in private people to then sort of like get the ancillary profit off of our necessary public activities. Usually in the tax credit world, to take advantage of them, you've needed to bring in a private actor who can realize the benefit of the tax credit. And so that's sort of what I'm curious about is this the type of thing where we need to form a partnership with somebody who can use the tax credits, or is it the type of thing where we really can turn them into kind of like cash to help pay for the improvements?
So maybe if we walk through the alternative fueling property example, because I think that's maybe the most tangible to understand, is basically the cost of anything, of like infrastructure for electrical vehicle charging, or if we did ethanol or biodiesel or anything like that, the tax credit, quote unquote, will be equal to essentially 30% of the cost of what we pay for that. So in some ways, I think it may act more like a rebate or something like that. It's my understanding. I don't know if others
like
have anything to add on.
I guess who pays us, or is the federal government paying the manufacturer of these things? It's fine for there to be follow-up. I'm just trying to understand, like part of what I'm trying to understand is what strings are attached to the city's ability to use these tax credits. Like, do we have to route it through a particular, like kind of arrangement in order to realize their benefits? And then just want to underscore green infrastructure. And we were talking about that just a few days ago here with Boston Water and Sewer and Kate England. But, just really wanting to make sure that we're dealing with stormwater, not just in terms of like building greater tanks, but also really like nature-based solutions. And would love to get a feel from any of you. I think this might be Rich, this might be Allison, but just sort of, frankly, a lot of the impervious surface, as we were discussing at that last hearing, belongs to Public Works and is stuff that BTD does projects around. Just whether we think that these federal opportunities across any of the bills have kind of caught up to supporting nature-based solutions, or if we feel like we're still not there.
I think probably as Boston Water and Sewer presented to you, it's storage and pumping that's needed, considerable amount of storage and pumping, but also nature-based solutions. If you look at the menu of grant opportunities, it's really pushing you towards nature-based solutions. So there's a lot of opportunities to various departments, including the EPA on stormwater retention. So that's there. I think that's what Boston Water and Sewer is reviewing as part of their new announceables on stormwater retention is what are the funding sources and what's the hierarchy of investments that need to be made over the next several decades.
And with the brownfields case that Ines mentioned, would that be is that, I couldn't quite tell if that was just related to making it into like more parkland, or whether it would actually increase the stormwater management, or?
So that funding comes from mass development.
Oh, okay.
And it's reserved for municipalities to do this type of remediation work.
Yeah. But Councillor, to your question, I think some of the grants that Vineet has been leading on are a good example where we're looking for all those opportunities to build green infrastructure into each of the projects. If we have a streetscape, there are new new design guidelines that release that are going to build that in. We're looking at areas to prioritize for these types of infrastructure investments where there are hotspots in stormwater need to address, and then even large projects, coastal resilience projects. We're not just looking at we are looking at the coastal nature-based solutions for wave attenuation and items like that, but we're also looking at, for example, in Moakley Park, there's a resilience berm that is one of the key features. There's also an enormous amount of stormwater management, opportunities for green infrastructure, increasing our tree canopy. We're trying to look holistically at all of those opportunities together instead of going one at a time and then coming back to look at trees or coming back to look at transportation or multimodal corridors. So we're really working to pull those pieces together as we do each of these projects.
Got it. Yeah, no, and Moakley is so important. Yeah. I mean, used to work at the BHA, and obviously both for Old Colony and Mary Ellen McCormick, we just really need that flood path to be closed in a significant way. I guess, but what about, though, to Councilor Worrell's point, like what about turning parking lots into grass? Is there anything, and by grass I mean green, like, so any kind of plantings, et cetera. Is there anything that the federal government is offering us that helps us switch things from impervious to pervious surfaces?
I think that's a good question. I haven't looked for that exact version. We do see it, I think, more holistically we see it represented in the federal opportunities as how are you increasing the resilience of this project, and then it's left to the city to define and make a pitch for how we are. And so that's where we're bringing our values as a city to the projects and saying, for us, resilience doesn't mean closing this flood pathway with a wall. It means a green infrastructure, nature-based solutions, stormwater, trees, and an accessible pathway. So that's very much where that is. But we could go back and look. There may be some opportunities we haven't seen yet that are directly dedicated to a strategy like that.
Yeah, and I think just like any place where you guys are doing a serious corridor reboot, thinking about, are there even aside from, like obviously we've talked a bit about having trenches in the public way that would be places where water could go seep in, but maybe there's a parking lot adjacent to that could be kind of captured in the project area. I know it means a lot to us in Mission Hill that that where the buses are going to turn from Columbus onto Tremont there at Roxbury Crossing, that there's an opportunity to improve the whole kind of public realm. And I'm just thinking that, there might be a significant greening of the impervious surfaces stuff that we could do even on adjacent parcels. And this is probably a follow-up, Vineet, but do you think you could get us the list of the 11 intersections that you guys focused on for the high crash?
Yes, I have it right here.
Oh, do you want to just read it and then just so that the council has a sense?
So it's it'll take a little bit. So it's Dorchester Avenue and Boston Street. That's right at Andrews Square. Mm-hmm. It's Bennington Street and Saratoga Street. We're doing that as part of the East Boston Transportation Action Plan. It's Wainwright Street and Brent Street. This is in Dorchester. The Reverend Loschbach. Claiborne Street and Tonawanda Street. This is in the Borden, Geneva area. Blue Hill Avenue and Columbia Road, we're trying to complement the race grant that we were just awarded. Similarly, Blue Hill Avenue and American Legion Highway. Walnut Avenue and Seaver Street. I think many of you know that intersection. It's very complicated there, right next to Franklin Park. It had a fatality recently. Neelan Street and Washington Street right at Chinatown. Mm-hmm. And adjacent to that, Stewart Street and Tremont Street. I should mention that these 11 intersections were selected through a combination of seeing where we have had a trend of crashes over the years, so we know that they're not safe. We've also kind of seen there are many intersections that are not in this list that are being addressed by other projects. So we shouldn't see this as a selection from all the intersections in the city.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, this is it's an annual program. And so, yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And yeah, no, I mean, right. For instance, like there's an intersection. I'm very concerned about Blossom and Cambridge in my district. We actually had a pedestrian fatality there in May. And of course, we have money in the capital budget and as part of the MGH project to really revision Blossom Street. I think the hope, though, would just be that for any of us whose intersections are not on that list, that you guys would be thinking about them and prioritizing them in the same way, right? That like, I mean, Blossom Street is a sore point because there's been $2 million in the budget to do it over since the Menino administration. And so, you know, I think like, so for me specifically, right, it's like, well, you know, I hope that if we've got other sources that are funding, doing, like really attending to a high crash concern intersection, that's sort of on our equally urgent list for execution, even though it makes good sense that we wouldn't chase federal money for things we already have covered. I had a quick question for Do It. I know we lost, Chief Garces had to go, but I think Jordan is still here for us. So Carrie, just a quick question, and then if, I'm happy to get a follow-up answer, but if you wanted to come grab his seat or the mic, whatever, you know where all the mics are. Okay, all right. So I guess, Carrie, one question I had was, do we have a sense, and I kind of feel like the answer to this is yes, because I feel like it's somewhere in the back of my mind, but I can't remember, like a sense of how many households in Boston we think are eligible for the ACP versus that 31,000 that like have gotten signed up by us and our partners? Like, I'm trying to remember.
I couldn't say for certain. Carrie Jordan, Chief of Staff for the Department of Innovation and Technology. I couldn't say for certain, but I think part of our experience is to make sure we're surveying to find out we know who we're trying to target. So before we start to roll out more programs or look for more funding to put opportunities, we want to make sure that we're reaching people where they are. So I don't have the specific number of households, but we may have it. I can look into it.
Yeah, so maybe if you could take back, I think my real question is this. I think that 31,000 number is significantly higher than where we were even 6 months and 12 months ago. My recollection talking about this is that it wasn't that long ago that it was sort of 10,000. And in my head, it's like maybe in the 70,000-ish range of Boston households that are eligible. But all those numbers, I think, have come at some point from Do It or Tech Goes Home. So I would love to get a sense of, because presumably we're sort of tracking how many households in the city of Boston are signed up from ACP. I'd love to get a sense of like, what has been our trajectory over, say, the last 2 years? Like, well, or really since ACP's sort of formalization and creation, because I know it kind of came out after the initial COVID measures. So just to get a sense of kind of like what our trajectory has been and where we are. I know the ACP signups was a big part of the money that the council put in for Tech Goes Home, and I'm not sure that we've gotten that all dispersed to them. That's an ARPA question for Casey. But I would love to just kind of understand where we think we are, because as we discussed when we were allocating that ARPA money, of course, like, you know, we think that once our folks are signed up for that $30 a month benefit, they're pretty much signed up for good. And so it makes like a really big long-term difference. So I think the council is very interested in understanding how we're moving on that. And you know, it was encouraging yesterday to have Bisola in talking about the extent to which, like, through focused effort, we really did close the racial gap on vaccination, on initial vaccination, not necessarily on the most recent booster, and so similarly, like, would love to just like really make sure we're throwing everything we can at getting people signed up for that. And then my other question is just if we can get a little bit more detail, and again, I'm fine with this as a follow-up, but just about this sort of vague sentence, Do It has been working to ensure the data used to calculate final allocations is accurate. It suggests to me that we think there's something about the data that the federal government has that might be inaccurate, and that we think there's an opportunity there. I don't know if you have any further light to shed on that.
I wouldn't like to speak to it, but I think that the timeline of when the data is released and the accuracy, because of the different places the data comes from, it's important that we are, you know, whether we go through assessing or Boston Water and Sewer, we're providing the right data to the FCC so that they can track us appropriately.
Right, and it would be a great place to, I mean, obviously, you know, the legwork that we've done with the Muni Broadband report that got finalized this summer, like, it would be great to make sure that we're using everything that we've done on a research legwork side to like maximize our chance at funding on that digital equity front, especially since the feds didn't really design the program with a place like us in mind, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those were my questions, I think, on Do It. I'm, an infinite number of questions on this, but I guess the other thing, a similar trajectory question, Casey, would just be on the electrification of our city fleet. Like, where are we? Where are we going? Like, I sort of now have a sense, like, with the buses, okay, we've gotten 20. We're now in the wait list apparently for another 25. I know we've got the charging infrastructure for 145. Like, kind of have some sense of where we're going, waiting to hear what the total fleet number is, but we'll get that soon. Yeah, just wondering, as we look at this opportunity with the IRA to maybe, and especially with the tax credits, to maybe do a lot of that, like how we can, because I know our city fleet is complicated and like there's like 30 different departments that own cars. So I'm just wondering if anybody, and it seems like you all would be the people to ask this, if anybody is like keeping track of the overall fleet and our progress.
So most of the fleet is managed by the central fleet team within the Public Works Department, so non-public safety vehicles, non-school buses. I don't have the exact number, but I work with them.
Yeah, there is a number.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the number on the fleet size, which we spoke about yesterday, is around 740 buses. So I did want to report back on that, on school buses, excuse me. Yep.
Got it. Okay. Right. So it'd be great to understand. So eventually we're going to need that equipment then at all the yards. And then, yeah. And so, I mean, well, and even, I mean, the central fleet, yes, but also, all our police and fire vehicles that are not the apparatus, like the stuff we don't pay for with the capital budget, right? The stuff that's like, we would pay for it, but you know what I mean? That isn't like its own capital project to get a fire truck. Yeah, it would just be great to understand. Because I don't think that, the thing about all of this, the whole reason we're having this hearing and the reason that we're going into so much detail on the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and on the Inflation Reduction Act is that these are not just like regular bond bills that come along every 5 years or every 10 years or like whatever. We don't have a reasonable expectation that we're going to get a re-up of any of this stuff. So would love to just be driving a truck through every opportunity we have. And it seems like what the IRA went really deep on was vehicle electrification. So, and I think there are critiques of that, et cetera, but but I think that given that that's the case, it would be great if we could electrify just about every vehicle we can in the city of Boston using this federal framework.
Roadmap.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, I think those are mine for now. Let me just check if colleagues have any second round questions. I think, Councilor Coletta, you okay? Yeah, I'm good. Oh, yeah, okay. Councilor.
No, no further questions.
I have one more.
One more, and then we'll go to Councilor Fernandez.
Yes, and this was really a question for the information as Santiago Garcias. I really need to learn how to pronounce this name. Yes. I'm just really thinking in terms of monitoring our investments and our outcomes across all the city departments. I know I wanted to just check in on the status of hiring a new GIS program manager, because our recent departure of Carolyn Bennett, who'd been there for 20 years, I think it's really helpful to have a good understanding, a good capacity to do a geospatial analysis so that we understand what's happening in real time and where it's all happening. So, when here comes Kerry again, thank you. The man of the moment, here he comes.
I'll just speak briefly to our staffing plan. There are a lot of areas where, as technology is advancing, our workforce has to kind of advance with it. So we're definitely trying to revamp and make sure that we continue to build out the GIS program, because we see how much it literally touches each part of the city. So it's definitely a focus of ours, along with other things.
Yeah, and I think the importance of the GIS system and the program is that it can connect us like the connective tissue across all our departments, and you can get real-time information on what's happening and where it's happening across the city, and it's really helpful. It's a really important and helpful tool to have, so we want to make sure that that capacity is strong as we go forward. So thank you. Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you, Councilor Braden. Councilor Fernandez-Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I guess for the 20 million that has been awarded in for the Roxbury corridors, can you tell me which corridors again? I heard one intersection, and I know the other one is Blue Hill Ave was separate. So $20 million for Roxbury corridors?
Yes, so there are 3 corridors, Councillor. Warren Street from Grove Hall to Nubian Square, connecting with Malcolm X Boulevard and Melnia Cass Boulevard.
So does that include you saying connecting with, so you're saying also MLK, also?
Yes.
Okay. So it's Warren Street, MLK Boulevard, and Melnia Cass?
Correct.
And I guess, where are you in, sorry, I know that I missed a lot of the presentation, but where are you in terms of, I see what's pending, but where are you in terms of like community engagement on these in these processes?
We haven't started the community engagement yet, so we anticipate starting something in late spring of next year. The way the grant was written, that it's fairly open-ended, so that what we design for is can be done hand in hand with local community leaders and with residents at large in the area. So, but we do know that we want to focus on some of the resiliency features, including green infrastructure, and looking at improving safety along those corridors, particularly.
What does safety mean to you for Warren Street?
It's making it safe to cross the street, making it safe for people to feel comfortable if they're walking or if they're on a bicycle, making it safe to get onto a bus, essentially from the transportation side.
And climate resilience means what for Warren Street?
It would mean having trees. It would mean creating bus stops that are comfortable and can be cooling and shade in the summer. It means improving bus service and providing priority so that a majority of the people who ride on that corridor, who travel in that corridor, are in buses. And it means reducing congestion as well.
Does this mean that if 20 million was awarded for the Roxbury corridors, all 20 million will be spent on the Roxbury corridors?
Yes, and we will need additional support from city funding because 20 million will not get us the kind of quality streetscape that we would need for these 3 corridors. And so we will be looking, but depending on what the design is, we'll be looking for additional funds from the city's capital budget.
There are talks about certain streets that intersect with Warren Street to be repaved or renovated by the end of 2023. Can you speak to how it impacts Washington Street, Dudley Street, or, and I know Blue Hill Ave corridor, that's a separate thing, but I think Townsend to Quincy.
So if those projects are done in 2022 or 2023, we'll make sure that as we proceed with
well, if they're done in the next 3 weeks, I would like that. But
yeah, well, sorry, I got my ears mixed up there. They would be incorporated into the design work that we do for those 3 corridors when we do start the design work.
Some of the concerns, and Roxbury being, I think, second at most risk as a heat island, Lower Roxbury in particularly. I know that is it the Hyde Park Task Force or Hyde Square Youth? They did a whole research and they came here, it was beautiful. And they presented on the heat islands, they did a whole study on Lower Roxbury heat islands. And of course, in District 7 constituents and in collaboration with their councilor, we're working on climate or displacement. And we're looking at these infrastructures, and we've been working with Northeastern, and we have a full design in terms of plans for parcels as well as street improvements fighting commercial displacement, climate displacement, as well as housing displacement. Would you be open to working with us to look at some of these designs, these amazing grad students have put together with the community's input? We did a full survey and study, and I think that we spoke about this briefly in other hearings in the budget season, and I mentioned, allow me to help you with the community engagement. I went on and did a full thing, a project, and we have a plan. We would like to collaborate and talk about hopefully how do we merge or consolidate the two.
Absolutely, and I think that I'll reach out to your offices to make the connection, so we can kind of, I mean, regardless of the federal grant, we should be working with you on that, and it sounds like a very exciting and innovative program, so absolutely.
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Jordan that as technology advances, that our workforce so should our infrastructure, and I find that everything here is interconnected in terms of how we beautify or revitalize spaces in District 7. I'm of the opinion, of course, as my colleagues, is that people in District 7 deserve better and deserve the most beautiful and fluid and workforce and all of these opportunities, and how we connecting with contracts that are coming our way to be able to do it equitably or responsibly. Can you tell me about some of your efforts, or how are you thinking about doing that?
To understand your question about investing in areas that we think need the most help, is that what you're trying to?
I think some of the goal or infrastructure bill or Inflation Reduction Act is specifically how do we tie that to either trade or workforce, and I'm interested in how you're working on that.
Yeah, I think on the workforce front, I don't have a lot of comment on. I know that when we do put out our contracts, and when we do community process, we make sure that we are finding ways to provide local stimulus to people who live in the area in terms of jobs, to the extent that we can. But it's not something that my team is kind of responsible for directly. But in our contracting, we absolutely focus on that. More recently, when we've looked at community engagement, we've focused on compensating and hiring local youth. We've focused on compensating and hiring and compensating community residents as well, to have, just like we pay our technical consultants, we'd like to engage community people for their local expertise. So it's a technical expertise that the consultants give, but it's a local expertise that community people give. And so they need to be kind of rewarded for that, compensated for that, and it also gives them an opportunity to, in some cases, when we are working with youth, to establish a career path. And I know that with the Green Jobs work, there has been a lot of focus on workforce development as well.
Councilor, I think you know well about the Power Corps Boston program that we're very excited about. We're actually coming up on graduation next week of the first cohort of that program. So looking for opportunities to expand and grow that program over the next few years. Love to work with you on more specific opportunities or program elements for that. We're also, I know, led by our Office of Workforce Development and our Workforce Cabinet. There's a lot of programs around weatherization. There's a Bridge to Weatherization program we're working on. It's a partnership between OWD and LISC out of the Roxbury Center for Financial Empowerment. It's a training program on bringing folks in to become weatherization technicians, which is, as we know, with affordability prices of electricity this winter, so critical for all of us. And also a lot of the jobs that are going to come out of the stimulus of the IRA. There's going to be a lot of funding and support for weatherization, so we want to make sure that folks are getting into those career paths and have the opportunity to take advantage of it from that side.
Thank you. I guess in the interest of doing that and being inclusive, you'll find that there are a lot of community folks that are working on these efforts, and I think respecting their work and time would be including them in those processes, and how we are being intentional and making sure that we are racially equitable as we move forward. So I look forward to you including me, and if I can help, I would love to. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Fernandez-Henderson. I'm just going to go, Councilor Worrell does have one question, and then I've got a couple more. Councilor Worrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My one question is around the charging and fueling infrastructure grants. Just kind of want to hear more information about the grants and the city's plans. When I'm in community meetings, from time to time, there's civic associations that have this grand idea of making their roundabout in the community a charging station, or even the Shawmut or Ashmont T station, just filling those up with charging stations. So just want to hear what the grant, more information on the grant and the city's vision on public infrastructure when it comes to energy charging stations.
Are you speaking of the BIL opportunity? Is that right?
It's under federal grants transportation. Yeah, BIL.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I don't have that opportunity right in front of me. I don't know, Chris, if you can speak to it.
Council will have to follow up. But there's
Yeah.
a lot of thought about how we rapidly expand electric vehicle charging and even e-bike charging, and also the job, sort of both the supplier and workforce pieces that come along with that. So, unless you know.
No, absolutely. I think that's a focus that we have yet to do. We've depended on state grants so far. We've installed electric vehicle charging stations in our municipal parking lots over the last 2 years. But absolutely, that program, which is currently dependent on state funding and state incentives, we need to look at the federal opportunities, the huge outlays from Washington to help with electrification.
Love to be part of those conversations. And then just going back, and I know that Council Barker spoke on this, but I would be not a district council if I did not raise up, our high crash streets, and I believe in District 4 we have maybe 8 of them.
Right.
So just want to make sure that I flag those. American Legion in Blue, Harvard and Walk Hill, American Legion in Walk Hill, American Legion in Cummins. So that's 4 that's in the top 8, and then we have 1 in the top 5 when it comes to pedestrian injury, which is Columbia and Washington.
Yeah, and and I know you've been working with Patrick Hoey, and I know you've been working with Charlotte, so they're all on my team, and we are coordinated on those, and absolutely.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate all the hard work, and I see some of these intersections have been addressed in your list of 11. So appreciate all the hard work and appreciate everyone on your staff and your team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is an instance where there are a bunch of D4 and no D8 intersections. So we're happy that they prioritized yours, Brian. I had just a few questions. Sorry, obviously thought of more. One is just, so on the Chinatown, so I think everyone knows, I grew up in Bay Village, so very much right there by that kind of Herald Street, Marginal Road corridor. And the idea of having a kind of like, a surface level park between Shawmut and Washington, covering the turnpike, is that the idea, just to be clear?
Yes, and this is a grant that we're working hand in hand with Allison's team at the Environment Department, and it's a planning grant.
Right.
For $2 million. It's an application. We haven't got the money yet.
And what I wanted to ask was, what would the trajectory be? Because obviously, our challenge that we've had with decking has always been that we're always trying to get someone to cross-subsidize building the deck, which means they want to build something tall, which is what we have happening down in the Fenway. The dirty secret is, I think basically the public's paid for the deck every time, and actually we've just created private development opportunities, but that's neither here nor there. I have always thought that if we were actually just building a deck for a park, and we were not trying to make it load-bearing for a big building, it would be less expensive, but it would still be quite expensive, and closing the highway underneath for the supports that you need, as I have learned, is a very expensive and complicated endeavor. So I'm sort of curious, when we apply for a $2 million planning grant for this, is this a grant program that has a trajectory on which hypothetically, if we were successful, we would also end up getting some federal funds to help build such a deck? Like, what's the staging of the grant?
That's exactly it. I think that this is I think you're on the right track. This grant will help us understand what is it that we need to do to create a quality park that Chinatown and Bay Village residents can enjoy. So that's the intent. And you're exactly right that they're not as expensive if you're not building something on them. There may be other opportunities where you don't go entirely over the turnpike, and you just kind of have wider bridges, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that kind of feasibility that this grant will help us look at. But the grant is really focused on reducing noise pollution, reducing,
small particulates.
Yeah. And so, at the very least, we can put up a fence.
Well, and we hope for more actual green space.
I'm just kidding. I didn't mean to say that.
That's the plan. But specifically to that point, Councillor, yes, this is a planning grant, but this grant, we look closely at this grant opportunity, and there are two components to it. One is planning, and then there's a much larger bucket for capital construction. We think that with the planning grant, we can design a very competitive application for the capital construction grant in a latter year.
That's great. No, and that was what I had hoped. Because I think it would be great, and we have so much data. Tufts really led the way on that, the small particulates in the air impact. They're the reason we're putting high quality filters in at the Quincy School. But I think we have a really strong case for covering over the highway there, not just for how people can enjoy it above, but for what it keeps down below. So would love to see this get some traction. Is that Ines or Chris? Okay, yeah. Do you want to?
Yes, from what I saw in the application, the Greenway, the Rose Kennedy Greenway is going to be studied as an example of how that gets done.
Yeah, well, that was exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, listen, I'm for a greenway, that whole section, cover the whole pike, where it runs through there. And obviously it would mean a lot to Chinatown. I assume that you all are thinking about the fact that because that was a part of Chinatown that was wiped out for the highway, in the same way as there's been a real effort on the Chinatown section of the Greenway to have kind of culturally appropriate and acknowledging kind of features. I think similarly there, thinking about things that would feel kind of welcome and resonant for instance, the many Chinese seniors who live on Mass Pike Towers overlooking that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's why we call it the Connecting Chinatown. The project is called Connecting Chinatown, and the Quincy School, making that more accessible for people who live on the other side of the turnpike, and connecting all the residential developments on both sides.
Yeah, Castle Square and everything.
Yeah.
And most of the community-based organizations in Chinatown were strongly in support of the application. And what we found is that this reconnecting Chinatown is a theme down Route 95 from, the Northeast Corridor. Those communities tended to have that geography in common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, because, yes, unfortunately, it's not an accident that the highway system plunged through Chinatown and lots of America's major cities. Well, that's a really exciting project. I hope we get it. And just wanted to say on the schools front, is the main grant opportunities for greening schools, is that mainly for kind of specific school systems and retrofits, or is it the type of thing where it could be money to support, because we're talking about building new school buildings, if we were building new school buildings to sort of state-of-the-art green standards, do we think there's money in either of these bills to support that, or is it more for kind of the retrofit stuff, which obviously we also have a lot of need for?
Yes, Councillor, I think there's opportunity for both, and we're looking, for example, with the Renew America Schools program, that's, I think, much more about retrofits and improving existing buildings, bringing them up to, it's focused and targeted on some of the most challenging schools, and so we want to bring them up to that highest level of standard. But there are a number of other programs everywhere from just incentive packages for new construction that we can apply to schools, to other programs we're looking at, like we did at Franklin Field, to look at piloting and demonstrating newer both resilient and energy efficiency technologies like geothermal. We're looking at those opportunities at our schools, our public housing, all of our municipal assets to bring that to bear.
Great. Yeah, no, and I just want to make sure that, and I don't know if the sort of like pivot person here is like you, Chris, or I don't know, but like, I'm just thinking about the fact that I feel like we have quite a large team thinking about like our schools and this kind of, you know, how we have a really well coordinated building plan on the sort of Green New Deal for the schools. And I'm just thinking about the fact that it's a big team and this is a big team, but they're not really the same people. Like if we were having a hearing on that, right, we'd have Dion and Morgan and and obviously like Carrie and the whole, and so I just want to make sure that especially as the facilities assessments are coming back and the kind of like the cascade of school projects get more into shape, that the expertise on the federal opportunities is like intersecting.
I would definitely say, and I know sort of like that Dion, Morgan are very much part of this. It's just sort of literally like
only so many seats. Yes, no, I understand.
So,
and we had, and Morgan joined us for the hearing this morning, so, you know, there's a certain, yes.
No, absolutely.
Yes, to answer your question though, there are two different types of investments that they want to see with the Renewing America Schools. And innovative technology is definitely one of those. Rooftop solar, micro wind turbines, they go into specific detail about the types of tech innovation, as well as the energy efficiency, and we're presuming that that means the older buildings. And you know Boston has some of the oldest school buildings in the nation. So there's that. There's already an existing work group on this particular grant that goes across BPS and the Environment Department, and you know, definitely the technology folks are talking to each other for sure.
Great, awesome. Yeah, we just obviously don't want any balls falling in the outfield. Yeah, and then just a comment related to the schools, but really all of this, and you sort of alluded to it, Casey, but you know, I just think like with the workforce standards that are embedded in these bills, like there's such a strong opportunity for Boston because we do have such a strong, high quality, like union construction workforce. And so I think that like, but we're not always using that workforce on our public projects. We obviously are under sort of Davis-Bacon, but especially a lot of our sort of like, you know, with our transportation work and everything, like it's not always the lowest bid. And so I'm kind of, I really would love to see us think about ways with project labor agreements and such to really just like, to prime ourselves so that we're like the best app in the bunch in terms of all that workforce stuff by being like, oh, well, this green spending on a school would be part of this project we're doing that happens to already have gold star like workforce things, and we've also used that to get a whole bunch of local young people in as apprentices. Like it feels like we have a better opportunity to do that than anybody else, and it's also the right thing to do, and it's also like kind of the actual promise of the sort of Green New Deal 2.0, right? Is that labor like piece? So I would love to really see us thinking about places where we could say as part of a grant, oh, we're going to glom this on to a set of work that we've kind of already fenced into a really high quality labor space. I don't know.
I think we're excited about that opportunity too. These two pieces of legislation are different in that is much more deeply incorporated. Typically in the past, we would apply separately for a workforce development grant and then a transportation grant. And so to see it kind of integrated into one application, I think will make for a better process for us. It also will require more internal coordination, but I think that's why we have this group here today, and Trin obviously isn't represented up here today, but is a part of helping us think about how to integrate more closely into existing applications so that it's not completely separate as it sometimes has been in the past.
Yeah, no, I think that would be great. And I don't really think there's a city in America that's better primed or positioned to do that than we are. So like, we should just also, it's both the right thing to do, and we should just be seeing it as our comparative advantage, you know? And yeah, really excited about that. two quick last things. One is just the climate bank. When you say that, Allison, you just mean like an entity that's willing to loan money at low interest for climate, like things to be implemented, or what do you really mean by a climate bank?
So effectively, that would be a core feature. I think we can get you some additional information, but there is a group working through a series of grant programs that we've had over a number of years through the American Cities Climate Challenge, and more recently through support from the Green Ribbon Commission and a partnership with Mass CEC to get into more detail to really look at what would the entity and the governance structure of such an entity look like, what's the right scale of the entity, and then begin to develop what offerings would make most sense and be those gap filling opportunities, whether they be financing structures or low interest loans or combinations thereof to meet needs. So it's really looking at a full portfolio of services. But the first step is to apply for the seed funding from the EPA.
Right. Okay, great. And it would be great if we are successful there for us to think about ways to use the city ordinance that we have on the books to try to ask our depository banks, the folks who keep the city of Boston's money, to be good, responsible community partners. It would be, obviously those are folks who we talk to about that in the context of our first time home ownership programs and a host of other things about making kind of like credit and loans and money available to Bostonians. It would be great to kind of like add asking them to step up and participate in like a green bank type like function to kind of a list of things.
Absolutely, Councillor. And just to clarify, we're looking at this at the state level. We think that that's where the scale makes most sense, but absolutely we want to make sure that this entity would be meeting the needs of Boston's residents. And I think connecting with our local banks is a great idea.
Well, and especially given what we were talking about yesterday about the fact that so many of the mass saves programs haven't really worked well for multifamily housing in the city, it would really be a shame if we supported a climate bank at the state level and then it didn't lend to our people and it lent to the communities with more capital.
Yeah, absolutely. By design, it has to support those residents and that need.
Yeah, and then the last thing would just be on the charging stations point, just following up to Councilor Orwell. I mean, I really think anything that we can do to encourage a hub charging model. So he was talking about, I don't know how a traffic circle would work. It seems like then you would block the traffic.
They wanted to block the streets.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Well, yes, I'm also for blocking streets. Re-pedestrianization of the city, is my long-term agenda. But seriously, I guess what I'm concerned about is, and I appreciate that we haven't done this to date. I think like from some perspectives, it looks like Boston's a little bit behind on charging infrastructure, but the flip side is we haven't given all of our curbs over to charging infrastructure. And I do think that just based on how much we've seen about the use of our curbs for all kinds of things, outdoor dining, sure, but also just like widening the sidewalk. I want to see us planting trees in them. Like there's just a lot of things, right? My concern about putting charging on them is that then the curb is the way that somebody can keep their vehicle, which they need, that they've acquired, operational. And so I think it can create a situation where like our electric vehicle owners are going to end up feeling like they sort of like need to own. We already have this dynamic. Everyone sort of feels like it would be nice if they owned the parking space in front of their house. In the neighborhoods that I represent, that's simply not possible. Like there are many more parking permits, as we all know, than there are spaces, and so everyone's moving around. But my concern is that we can't really afford to have a kind of 1-to-1 ratio of people's electric vehicles to parking spots, and so I like the fact that we've chased charging in municipal lots, and the fact that we're making all these new developers of new like any new underground structured parking put in the electric infrastructure. I think it's still like they have to put in 25%, but 100% has to be eligible. So that's great. Probably we have to knock that 25% up pretty soon. But it's there, right? The key thing is getting the lines in. But it does seem to me like we're going to need a lot more chargers. And the only way it's going to work if it's not everybody doing it at all of the curbside spots is, it should be like our fast food restaurants, our MBTA, hubs, park and rides, I I think like basically anywhere somebody's stopping for an errand for half an hour, can they get a charge? So our meters would be a place on the curb where it would make a lot of sense. Like, I think what we need is the kind of charging that people can do kind of all the time as they're out and about in the city of Boston. I'm sure in the long run there will be something like charging gas stations, but it just doesn't feel like for the amount of time, because you're always going to need more time, and then you need to fill up a gas tank. Like, you can't just replicate that model. But I just want to flag that it seems like if we're not going to chase having them at every curb, and we'll have to do some curbside, and then having it be inobtrusive technology that isn't going to like mess with us when we redesign the street seems important. But I just feel like we have to be kind of aggressive about the alternate strategy, or else people are going to be buying these electric cars with all these tax credits that the law is providing, which we want them to do because we want to get off of our dependence on gasoline, and it's important to our climate goals. And then they're going to be like, well, you guys haven't provided any charging infrastructure. So it's more of a kind of rant from me, but I'm just curious if you guys want to comment at all on the strategy, because it just feels like the IRA accelerated the speed with which we need to figure this out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the solution is not to put electric chargers on all our parking spaces, on-street parking spaces. I think the solution is to find adequate off-street opportunity that is publicly available, because not all garages are actually open to the public. So
quite a lot aren't.
Even though we are requiring them to, we have the nation's highest standard for providing electric chargers in garages, but not all those garages are actually public. And so this is a problem that we're not alone in trying to wrap our arms around. It's a problem that most major cities have. And so there is, the technology is evolving, charging is becoming faster and less kind of curbside occupying, so to speak, with these bulky chargers. It's becoming more flexible. There was a vendor we met who talked about charging on demand. You just call them up and they'll show up in another car. Of course, I mean, I'm not saying that we support that model, but there's that kind of innovation. So that other car would show up and they would have a battery and they just give it to you and you swap it. So the technology is evolving. There are a lot of innovation, a lot of vendors who are looking to innovate in that space. But absolutely, we have to get aggressive. We have to identify some specific programs. They might be incentive-based so that you can charge at home. But then if not everybody has space in their outside their house, in their house, and so they're parked outside. Yeah. And then we also have to remember that what we really want to do is get more people into public transportation. I mean, that's our kind of primary objective. And if you have to drive, then you should be driving an electric car or a clean fuel vehicle. So we completely agree, and we'd love to engage you when we start to kind of formulate some programs.
Yeah, it would be great. Like when we think about the sort of fourth category of how you guys were going to maximize the IRA for Boston, advertise opportunities for others. Like, I wonder if we could start a program where we actually say to like any of our commercial businesses with a parking lot. I'm thinking grocery stores, Dunkin' Donuts, fast food restaurants, hardware, like, you know, like box stores, literally like anything that has a parking lot. Like, hey, here's the quick and easy like process for you applying for these, you know, these rebates, tax credits, et cetera. This is how much you can get. Maybe the city is adding some sweetener to that where we're like, you know, if you do this in the city of Boston, we even help you. Because I just think that, yeah, I don't think we're going to get there from here with just the private and the municipal garages. And I also I think the logistical challenges of trying to do it from the street curb parking just run into the constraints on that space that we have. So I would love to see us think about something like that.
To your point, the tax credit for alternative refueling properties that we were talking about earlier are obviously businesses are eligible. So working with them to make sure that they're aware of the opportunity and encouraging them to do that, I think would be helpful. And then the community charging work that you spoke of earlier, Councilor Worrell, actually does, the rulemaking is still in process, which is, I think, why we didn't have much to report back. I was just looking up on my notes on it. But we do know that they are trying to prioritize communities that have lower ratios of private parking. So our hope is that Boston could be competitive in that. We also know they have a prioritization for rural communities, so we'll probably win in some categories and not being competitive as others. But it's clear that they're, at least on both sides of the BIL and the IRA, that they're trying to incorporate some of these, the same threads that we're talking about here today.
Great, that's great to hear. I'm just going to check if my colleagues have any last things to say. Okay.
No, I think, no, this has been a great conversation. I'm sure I've got more questions. I'm very, I think we're in good hands. We're all thinking and working together. It's quite amazing. And I know you're only a representative sample of all the folks that are behind the scenes. So thank you for your work. And we look forward to continuing this very important conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. You're all set? Okay. Oh, you did have something. All right, she did have something.
Yeah, no, just to say thank you. And this has been incredibly informative. There's been a lot of ideas that have been put out here. I really look forward to subsequent conversations, how my district can benefit. I got a shout out District 1, always and forever, East Boston, Charlestown, and the North End. I'm already thinking about parking lots. Councilor Bach, so thank you so much for that, and just how we're utilizing our buildings. And obviously, at the forefront of my mind is coastline resiliency. So thank you, Rich and Allison, for your work on that. And thank you in general. That's it.
Yeah, I'll just echo everyone's thanks and say, yeah, I don't know if it might be an unrepresentative sample, but we do appreciate you all for joining us today and spending so much time, both with us here and on all the prep that you guys did for this. And, you know, we'll be continuing to follow up. I think we really want, as counselors, to be allies on this stuff. So both in terms of surfacing, you know, what are the, I think you heard from several colleagues, like the community kind of grassroots ideas that we're hearing, the concerns and perspectives, making sure that, like, you know, I think it is important to hire community members to help, but also, like, sometimes it feels a little goofy if the department doesn't just come ask the counselor who they should be talking to in a particular area. And I think we really want to be helpful. And then with things like community support letters, you know, giving that kind of like extra oomph sometimes to these applications. I know from my like BHA days that there is a little bit of that kind of like narrative and packaging and the sense that the community is really behind this thing that can really help put it over the edge. So, so would love to be a part of that. And yeah, we really want Boston to come out the other end of this with having really maximized the opportunity. So thank you to all of you. I want to check whether there's any public testimony. All right, no public testimony. Also shout out to Kat Eschel, who's here from the Environment Department, all her work. With that, this hearing of the Boston City Council's Committee on Boston's COVID-19 Recovery is adjourned.